What's going on, everybody? It's Eric Ray back here with some more Madden talk. So for today's video, we're gonna discuss an important topic. I actually did a video like this last year, but I had to wind up taking the video down because of a certain reason. So I've wanted to remake this video and kind of do it a little bit better than I did the last time as well. So the topic is NFL 2K. Is it ever coming back? Can it come back? And let's compare 2K versus Madden. Not only football on football, but let's compare, the company that is 2K to EA, and let's just look at some things. So first and foremost is NFL 2K ever coming back? I think the short answer for that is no, and the reason being because it's really the NFL. It's not anything really to do with EA. The NFL are the ones that put the exclusive rights up for bid. They did that. A lot of people think, oh well, 2K5 came out, it was competition for Madden 05 back then. They were really, head-to-head rivals, and people think, okay, well, EA just said, they ran to the NFL and said, let us buy the license, we want the license. That's not really how it went down. At least of the information that we know, we don't really know everything, but the information that is available that we know says that the NFL wanted one company. They wanted that. They wanted to put the exclusive rights up for bid, and EA just simply had more money to throw up, or were willing to throw up more money. 2K tried to get the rights as well. Other companies tried to get the rights as well, but EA obviously was bigger than all these companies, so they had more money to throw at them, and thus they got the license. So you kind of have to blame the NFL for that, for one. Number two, the NFL, as far as everybody knows, as far as we know, they have no interest in opening the license back up. They only want one company making the game, and I think a big reason for that is because it's easier for them to control, right? The NFL controls every single thing that goes into the game. If they don't want something in the game, EA cannot put it in the game. And the NFL is very strict about things, more so than, let's say, the NBA or other organizations. The NFL, as you know, they call them the no fun league for a reason. They're very strict. So there's a lot of things that aren't in Madden, and that's because of the NFL. It's not because of EA. Things like helmets popping off, concussions, create a team. Those are NFL things. They don't want that in the game. Now, does it mean we'll never get it back into the game? That doesn't mean we'll never get it back, but for right now, they're the reason that it's not in the game. It's not EA. EA knows people wants those things, and a lot of those things wouldn't be that hard to implement. The NFL doesn't want it there. So long story short, the NFL, it's easier for them to control what goes in the game by only having one company to have to deal with. And they like their relationship with EA, despite with, some of the, vocal minority might feel, towards Madden. The NFL likes their relationship with EA. They think that EA is doing a great job. The game is successful every year. They sell about the same amount every year. The sales don't really dip. There's consistency there. They have a good working relationship. Obviously, Ultimate Team is bringing in more money because of the way the mode is set up. Financially, it brings in a lot of money because people spend money on it. So they're happy with their relationship. They're not going to open the license back up. So, I get that comment a lot on my videos, obviously, because I am a Madden channel. People saying 2K needs to make the game again. When does 2K get a chance to make the game? And a lot of people just really don't understand how things are working or how they do work. It's very unlikely that 2K is going to have a chance to make a game anytime in the near future, if ever. But, never say never, because you just never know what could happen. But in the near future, over the next 5 to 10 years, I definitely would not. You'd be foolish to expect it, because it's very unlikely to happen. But let's go further into some things now. Now that that's off the table, let's talk about 2K versus Madden, because I do think when it comes to NFL 2K5, I feel like a lot of people romanticize the past. It was a phenomenal game. I own the game. I still have the game. I have all the Maddens, and I have, NFL 2K5. NFL 2K5 was a great game. So was Madden 05. Madden 04 to like Madden 07 was really like a great run for Madden on PlayStation 2. Madden 04, in my opinion, is the best football game of all time. Madden 05 is a top 5 game of all time to me. Madden 06, I would say, is at least a top 10 football game. Those 3 years were really good. And 07 on PS2 was also a really solid game. That was a really good run for them. And that was around the time, obviously, of NFL 2K. NFL 2K, even though they ended after 2005, Madden still definitely had to, carry on some things. They had to, make it appear that they were the, they deserved the license. They had to keep innovating, and they have, gotten away from that a little bit over years. But I still think people romanticize 2K5 because number one, it was the last version of the game. It's the same thing with NCAA 14. NCAA 14 is a phenomenal game, but the legend of the game is so big now because it was the last one ever, and people still play it to this day. Whereas there are some other NCAA games that you can argue were better than 14, but 14 holds such this, you know, it holds this high likability for people because it was the last one ever made. So, you know, it's the same thing if you look at, you know, an artist that dies and, you know, his last album, or, you know, he puts out an album and he dies, you know, and it was a great album. It was the best album of all time. He was one of the best artists of all time, but we never really got to see him progress. It's kind of the same thing with NFL2K. On Dreamcast, they were a great game. 2K5, they hit a peak. We never really got to see them progress there, and I say that to... I'll get more into that later in the video, some examples of what could have happened, but a lot of people say, well, the gameplay was better on 2K5, and I kind of disagree with that. That's one thing I disagree with. I think Madden gameplay was very good back then. I think the thing people don't realize is that the people that typically break the game in terms of like glitches or, you know, finding the overpowered stuff, those are typically the top tier players, the pro players, and those guys didn't play NFL 2K, not most of them at least, because 2K didn't really have a lot of money as far as like tournaments, stuff like that. They didn't have big money they were throwing around, whereas Madden and EA did. That's where all the money was at. So that's where all the top tier competition was. We never really got to see NFL 2K5 get broken. You know, I go back and play 2K5, and I know other guys that have said the same thing. They go back and play it, and you can find many things with the gameplay that was indeed broken, the same way that Madden had things that were broken. But there's two things. Like I said, one, you didn't have the pro players really breaking down the game and dissecting the game. Those are the guys that really find the glitchiest things. And also, you didn't have YouTube back then. Online, you know, you still had forums and stuff like that, but things didn't get as widespread back then. So even if there was people that were good at 2K and they found glitches, it never got widespread because it was the times that we were in. Now, of course, Madden, if something happens, everybody's going to know about it within a few days, and that's just how it is. So I think they kind of romanticize that when they talk about 2K5's gameplay. Was it bad gameplay? No, it was still good gameplay, but to say it was just superior to Madden, I don't really think that's true. Now, where 2K5 had Madden beat was definitely presentation. That is, and I think that's what left the biggest lasting impression on people, because 9 out of 10 times when someone brings up 2K5 to me, whether it's in person or in my comments, 9 out of 10 times they mention the Chris Berman, you know, the weekly wrap-up, the halftime show. That is the thing I see mentioned almost every time. And I feel like that one feature alone just stuck with people so far. And since we've never really gotten like that, anything like that in Madden, we haven't gotten the ESPN integration into Madden yet. Even though they have it in NBA Live, which is weird. They don't have it in Madden yet. We don't have that. We don't have the weekly wrap-ups. You know, they just this year updated the halftime show, and it's still obviously not as good as 2K5's halftime show was. I think that's one of the biggest things that left the lasting impression with people, and it's just easy to look back and say, oh, the game was just so great. It was great for its time, but you have to also remember it was a $20 game too. Had they not come out at that $20 price point, I don't think they would have really competed with Madden. I think that's why, you know, it was still a great game, but would as many people have given it a chance if it wasn't $20? No, they wouldn't have. I mean, that's just basic math. You got a game that's $50, you got a game that's $20. You're probably going to buy that $20 game, especially if you're a kid and your parents are buying you the game. They're going to be like, well, this game's $20, this game's $50. Why wouldn't I buy the $20 game? Kind of makes sense. So that's what really helped them really get their foot big time in the door because of that price point. And then once people had the game, they realized, oh, wow, this actually is a really great game. And like I said, it was. I played that game a ton that year. I had a lot of fun on that game. I wish they were still able to make games because I think, obviously, no one would disagree that competition makes games better. But you know, the reality of the situation is it's not going to happen. But let's jump forward now. So obviously both of those games were you know, if you're not biased, you admit that those games were pretty evenly matched. If you look at up all the reviews, you can look up YouTube reviews, you know, publications, whoever did reviews, those games, Madden 05 and ESPN 2K5 were neck and neck. It was really personal preference which game you liked better. They were both very, very good games. They were equal in many ways. You know, I think gameplay was a little better on Madden, but I would say presentation was better on 2K. So it just comes down to what you value more. So it's not like they were just far and away better than Madden. If you take the price point away, you know, it wasn't like they were far and away better than Madden to where, you know, Madden never had a shot. It wasn't like that. But let's look at what happened. Like, going back to what I said earlier, you know, they died off in 2005, so we never got to see them progress with the times. But we did get to see them progress with NBA 2K and WWE 2K. they don't own the exclusive rights to the NBA license, but they might as well have over the last decade. They have dominated that. NBA Live, went away a couple times because it just wasn't up to par. 2K has literally dominated basketball for the last decade, and you can see where they're headed. They're not headed in a good place. They are on the decline. 2K17 was one of the worst 2Ks ever, and this is a person that plays 2K that likes 2K. I am a 2K fan. 2K17 was probably the worst one ever. 2K18 was not much better. Gameplay wise, 2K18 was one of the worst. It's terrible. A lot of the same things that people complain about with Madden, the 2K community complains about the same exact things with 2K. And that, I say that to say this, that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. If ESPN had a chance to come back and make, or 2K had a chance to make NFL2K again, that doesn't mean that it would be like it was in 2005. The gaming community, the industry is different now. It's not like, it's the same way that, Madden right now will probably never be as deep as it was on PS2. It was just a different time. It was the golden era. We're not probably going to see that again. That sucks to say, but it is just the reality of it. You could go look up any big 2K YouTuber, any diehard 2K fan. You can go to Reddit, you can go to YouTube. They have been complaining about 2K for the past few years. And I can point you to certain people. You can check out a guy, his name is Agent 00.
It was too time-consuming and costly to progress in my career, which, by the way, is the one everybody should be voting for, so they reduce microtransactions in the next game. 2K, if you're asking questions about why people have slowly stopped playing the game, let me answer them for you. The game is not fun to play if you don't keep it fun to play. You can't just drop it and expect the user base to go up. There has to be some sort of new content. You need new content. Of course, microtransactions, big issue. You even said it right there. Too time-consuming and costly, which, by the way, are two thing that NBA 2K is. They came out with a game that they never added new content for at any point this year, that was troubled with massive issues they never bothered fixing. And with every patch came not only no patch notes, but it never addressed the real issues. If indications are anything like it was in the past couple years, 2K17 ass, 2K18 was boring and ass, then I don't know how people can be that optimistic for 19. I don't even want to set up expectations.
He makes tons of commentary on 2K talking about the problems about the game. You can check out Chris Smooth. He's been doing this for years. The same things people complain about with Madden, you can go look through their channel and it's the same thing with 2K. Like, oh, why is the gameplay so bad? Why are the players going through each other? People say that in Madden, like, oh, they can't stop players from going through each other. Every game does that. NBA 2K does that all the time. Agent 00 is always talking about, how the game is getting more cheesy. There's certain dribble moves that just everybody spams. There's certain, plays that everybody spams, and they just can't ever get the gameplay right. It's bum-friendly. It's becoming more casual-friendly. The same things you hear about Madden. It's becoming bum-friendly. There's DDA. You don't have to have skill to win. It's the same thing they're saying about 2K. And then you want to bring microtransactions into it. Their biggest mode is My Player. That is the draw to their game. My Player, My Park. They have gotten so out of hand with the VC, the virtual currency, that if you don't put a lot of money into the game, it is so hard to upgrade your player. And that's why I stopped playing 2K this year and I actually played Live, because NBA Live, even though it's made by EA, I guess since they're trying to get their foot back in the door, they're not really a pay-to-play game. You can upgrade your player very easily on that game, which is what people want. If you play 2K, you're pretty much not going to ever get your player to a 90 overall without spending a good amount of money on virtual currency, and people are so frustrated with that. Like I said, just search it on YouTube and you will find people that are like, they're jumping back over to Live because they're sick of what 2K is doing. They feel like NBA Live is starting to innovate now and 2K is just doing the same thing every year. They're too worried about pay-to-play and microtransactions. In order for you to upgrade your My Player, you have to play so many hours that it's ridiculous. It's the same thing that EA had with Star Wars Battlefront when it was about to release, to where, yeah, you could unlock every character in the game, but you would have had to play for 4,000 hours. It was ridiculous. They were trying to base it off microtransactions, and then the uproar happened, and then they dialed it back. It's really the same thing in 2K, and 2K for some reason kind of slides under the radar with this a lot, where they don't get as much of that uproar. It was the same thing with My Player. If you didn't put an ungodly amount of hours into the game, you could not upgrade your player without putting money into them. You couldn't upgrade, you couldn't get all the gear and everything you wanted. Whereas Live, it was the exact opposite. They're trying to get their foot back in the door, and they're not asking for your money. So I'm just saying that to say, don't think that the grass is always green on the other side. Go look at the WWE community. They've been saying for years that 2K just does not understand how to make a good wrestling game, that they just do not get it. The game is terrible. The gameplay is terrible every year. The customization is bad. I'm telling you, everything that people complain at EA for with Madden, people complain about 2K in their game. So I'm just saying, don't always think that, you know, the other side has all the answers, because if you actually play these other games, and anybody that does play them knows what I'm saying is true. So that's just it. That's kind of my little rant video for today. Stay tuned. I do have a lot more Madden 19 content dropping very soon. This next week, you're going to see a ton of exclusive stuff dropping. So definitely subscribe below if you want to check that stuff out. And as always, I will see you guys next time.